Mr. Ziauddin, Excellency Mr. Robert, friends, delegates to this conference. Today's conference is on media, democracy, and governance. And I'm happy that there are over 250 delegates in this conference from all over the country. Almost all districts are for the first time represented, and the 50 press clubs have sent their representatives to this conference, and we welcome them all and kindly applaud their presence. Join me in applauding and welcome them. These are the times for celebrating the freedom that we have got through a protracted struggle for civil and human rights and for the restoration of democracy and constitutional rule that was successively interrupted by the usurpers in Khaki, the military dictators. Pakistan can now be distinguished as the only country, perhaps, in the Muslim world to have a very dynamic and free media and an authoritatively independent judiciary. This we do not see. Bangladesh is another good example, emerging example of this. The new vibrant components of our democracy in transition are a free media and an independent judiciary and a very vibrant and authoritative parliament. Fortunately enough, we have a parliament that has earned the distinction of having passed the 18th Amendment with an absolute consensus. This had not happened in 1973, when, if you do not know, some of you, but I think most people know it, that there were dissenting notes from Balochistan on the 1973 Constitution. This amendment removed the stigma of most infamous 8th Amendment, 58(2)(b) in particular. But unfortunately, this amendment also did not touch the arbitrary so-called Islamic provisions brought into the Constitution by the dictator called Ziaul Haq. And we continue to live with those amendments to this day. It also struck down the 17th Amendment, but fortunately not striking down some of the good features of it, like, for example, joint electorate and representation for women. It granted greater autonomy to the federating units, and I think that's a very welcome development. I know that my Baloch friends will still not be happy. My Sindhi friends will have still skepticism, but the concurrent list has gone, and also some of the subjects which were in the purview of the federation have also gone to the joint management of National Council of Common Interest. And Council of Common Interest has emerged as a very authoritative body, which has become almost, if established fully, that will become a kind of super cabinet. And that's a good example of federation. Thanks to the Charter of Democracy and a policy of reconciliation, we are witnessing a democratic culture of accommodation, adjustment, and understanding among various political elements, with an opposition playing by the book, setting healthy democratic conventions. We are not witnessing, or we are not seeing the repetition of what happened in the 90s, when both the People's Party and the opposition and the PML of Mr. Nawaz Sharif continued to have long battles and destabilize each other's government and refuse to coexist in a democratic framework. We must appreciate that politicians have learned from their past experience, and we see much greater accommodation and understanding, and we also see its reflection in the creation of coalition governments. As democracy allows greater space to civil society and civilian institutions, we witness a greater assertion of vocal elements of civil society, the media and the bars, the judiciary, revived under democracy by democratic means and through democratic acts, and the federating units by virtue of the NFC award. to expand their spheres and spaces scuttled due to the military dictatorship. This is very important. We are seeing a great upsurge among all civil institutions, including civil society, media, and judiciary, exerting their position, asserting their position, and broadening their space. Because under military rules, the space for all civil institutions is narrowed down and squeezed. As democracy revives, it provides a greater space. So we didn't see such a proactive judiciary during Musharraf's time, before 2007. We did see vibrant media emerging during that time, but we are not seeing such a fierce criticism of the government as we are witnessing now. And these are all the gains of democracy. And judges were also not restored during the dictatorship. They were also restored during the period of democracy. And we also see a presidency bowing to the parliamentary spirit of the 1993 Constitution. In Pakistan, we had seen that presidency always became a tool to destabilize, disrupt, throw out the democratic governments. But this is the difference that we have a presidency now, whether we like it or not, is elected, we have an elected president, and who has set a good example by conceding his powers, which were promised by his party, in fact, and done away with consensus by the parliament. Most vibrant and inclusive is the politics of coalition making at the center and the provinces. This is very good. We have had very bad experience of 3/4 majority, 2/3 majority governments. Pakistan doesn't need absolutist governments. But there is a feudal psyche here that there should be a strong government, Dande wali government, Takli government. And if there is no Dande wali government, iron fist government, so we are not happy that we say that there is no governance. We want to see Kalabags, and we want to see Musa Khans and Tika Khans. We see unprecedented accountability of the elected representatives by the media. And I think that is a very good example of accountability and also transparency. That media is playing a very vibrant role, and we welcome it. Sometimes we feel, to the point of ridicule, the way politicians are being harangued and harassed. At some point we see, and we feel sympathy for the poor guys. And they are the most cursed lot, not the real those powerful people who have always been ruling this country from behind the scene. On the top of it, a very proactive judiciary, which is not letting any omission of the civil executive go unpunished. This is again, a great advancement over the past, that we should not be worried about the proactiveness of the judiciary in favor of civil rights or human rights of the citizens. But sometimes we do feel that perhaps a judiciary is exceeding its limits and trampling over the sphere of the executive. I think they will also learn, and we are also learning how to practice democracy. The courts will also learn, and media will also learn, and the politicians will also learn. Every public complaint or outcry finds its fullest and loudest expression on 24/7 news broadcasts and the daily newspapers. This instant and minute-by-minute breaking news, and please forgive us for this, it has become a syndrome, and unending repetitive talk shows have captured the political and social landscape. It's happening that there is a massive debate to the point of boring the viewers, that on one topic, at least 15, 16 talk shows are going at the same time during the prime time. And I think ratings are also getting stupid, are being made to be stupid, seen to be stupid, the way they are being conducted. But I think, again, media will learn its lessons with due course of time and experience and training. These free times and democratic virtues are all thanks to democracy and only democracy. Those who think that they ran a campaign in 2007 and 8 and got everything, I think that is much more than we deserve for just that movement. People here are people sitting in this conference hall who have been fighting for democracy for more than 55 years in this country, ever since Ayub Khan imposed this martial law in 59. So this is not, we had to fight on every inch of democracy and every inch of civil and human right in Pakistan. I tell my Indian friends that you got it in a platter, and you got it from the very beginning, but we had to fight it every time, and again there used to be this vicious circle that we are demanding the restoration of democracy. After some time, again, democracy is gone. So we know this, that democracy has to be defended, and all freedoms that we enjoy are thanks to democracy. And this is the job of the media and the courts and the civil society, that we keep this democracy continuing, however flawed it may be. There are many defects in this. We have serious problems with the governance. We have many issues with the government. But let democracy continue. And what the slogan says, we say no to any kind of undemocratic and unconstitutional change in Pakistan, and we will resist that. Those violating all norms while provoking the countdown for undemocratic change every week or month must realize that a free media and an independent judiciary, rule of law, respect for civil and human rights are all sine qua non of democracy and not otherwise. If you will dig the grave of democracy, you will be inviting your own demise. I am not in any doubt that if democracy is packed up in this country, I'll tell you that there will be no media freedom as well. Still, licenses are not being controlled by poor Pembra or the information ministry. Our application for radio and television for our school, South Asian Media School, is lying for the last 8-9 months. I don't know where, but not in the legal realm of scrutiny. So, still, there are impediments in the way of freedom of expression. We want that no security institution should have anything with the permission of licenses for radio or television. And they should be made easy thing. Again, it has become a big business for the monopoly groups. This is the noise of democracy that we relish. We must protect. Indeed, there are those deluded by the newfound power who are insulting the sanctity of freedom and legitimacy of their authority, while crossing ethical and institutional limits for their parochial and vested interests. They must be checked from within, and this is the job of the media from within, that we check these tendencies of scandalizing, of interfering with the privacy of the citizens, of defaming, of running campaigns. This is not the job of the media. And I tell you that if this practice of sectional media continued, people will not support the kind of support we got when General Musharraf clamped down on the media, and we got a popular support. People came out on the streets supporting media freedom. We should maintain our credibility with neutrality and objectivity and professional standards, and that should come from within. We do not want executive or government teaching us and telling us what to do and how not to do. That is our job. We see that despite the restoration of democracy, the real power structure is still operative beyond the letter and spirit of the Constitution. If you ask that who is running the foreign policy of this country, or the policy about the neighborhood, or the policy about security, can we say that yes, this is being decided by the parliament or the elected government? I'm sorry to say that I doubt it. And when we take on the government, isolate it, punish it on daily basis, minute by minute basis, it also loses its space to the powerful sections of the power equation. And this is what has happened. We saw good beginnings initially, but later we saw the spheres of foreign policy and relationship with the neighborhood slipping out of the hands of the government. We heard some very good proposals in the beginning that the President announced that yes, Pakistan is ready to discuss no first use of nuclear weapons. But we attacked the President, demolished him, and he had to retreat. There was a bad move, but right move, to put ISI under control of the Interior Ministry. Okay, we don't like Interior Minister, but the principal issue was that who should monitor and direct the ISI or other intelligence agencies. We attacked, it was against the national interest, it was against national pride, and we made the government retreat. And I am sorry to say, some of us were part of it. And we are making politicians accountable, but we cannot make those forces accountable who are still beyond the civilian purview or civilian oversight or parliament's oversight. I do not know where the defense budget is being spent, how it is being spent, where it is being spent. I do not know how many shoes are being bought, how many uniforms are being bought, what's being spent on the mess. I do not know. Yes, there are some confidential aspects of everywhere of security. They may not be revealed, but there must be some purview, some review or supervision at some level in the parliament. I do not know the money being given to various intelligence agencies where it is being spent. And this is part of a right to know. And I'm sorry to say, the minister will be soon with us, that we had proposed in 2004, we had amended all media laws brought by Musharraf, and that included a very bad information law, and that included a black law called PEMRA. And I'm disappointed that this government has also, or this parliament has just deleted or removed the amended part of the PEMRA ordinance. It has not revised the PEMRA ordinance altogether. Information law, which we had proposed, draft law, was cleared by the Information Ministry, also vetted by the Law Ministry. But I asked 2 months back the Information Minister, where is that law? I think Secretary of Information, if he's here, he could tell us, and we should have to give some ad in the newspapers about Talash-e-Gumshuda, where is this bichara lost draft. So, Kaira Sahab, just to brief you that you are seeing that we are saying no to undemocratic and unconstitutional change. We want the democratic system to continue. We want that there shouldn't be any conspiracy or machination or any effort at destabilizing or booting out a democratically elected government. We have discussed all these issues in detail, the role of media, the judiciary, the democratic system and all. We also discussed the power structure, which is still hindering the space of the actual sovereign space of elected democratic government. We are sorry that despite our long struggle, our parliament is not, or the government is not fully sovereign. We talk a lot about sovereignty, sovereignty, sovereignty. Please tell me whether Mr. Kaira's government is sovereign in deciding his government's foreign and security policy. He will say, yes, I wish that he is right. And we will be with him that if they assert that right. This is the right of the people of Pakistan to decide their own destiny. Who is sovereign in Pakistan? Is the army sovereign? Is the judiciary sovereign? Is the parliament sovereign? Who is sovereign? And my friend Justice Tariq and his friends have confused the whole nation by quoting page 148 of PLD and page 377 of PLD. The whole nation has become now confused by going into, but we have lost the touch of politics. Who is sovereign in Pakistan? Here we found a good solution that sovereignty belongs to God to be exercised by the elected representative of the people. In the constitution, will of the people is supreme. People are sovereign, and that is exercised by the elected representative of the people, nobody else, other than the organs of the state. But here we see a kind of autonomous fiefs emerging. Army is self-autonomous, judiciary is self-regulatory, media is totally free. So we see that there is a kind of institutional anarchy. What Musharraf used to call a unity of command. That is typical militaristic hierarchical view. That can't happen in democracy. In democracy, you have to respect the will of the people, you have to submit to the will of the people. Only people of Pakistan, through their elected representatives, are entitled to rule this country. And only people can change. Not a media group, not a ISI or any other agency, not the GHQ or headquarters 111 or 555, whatever brigade that is. They do not have any right. They will be committing a treason if they do so, if they overthrow a government through unconstitutional and democratic means, through powerful means, and through violent means. I want to here focus on some of the points of the agenda we'll be proposing and discussing tomorrow. I will not read it out today. I will do it tomorrow. The number one issue, we had issued a statement signed by leading journalists and intellectuals, Citizens for Democracy. The title was No to Undemocratic and Unconstitutional Change. We had resolved that all institutions of state must work within their constitutional legal limits, that they should not become in any way instrument in the hands of those who want to destabilize through illegal means, through unconstitutional means, the democratic setup. We'd also called upon all the political forces and civil society that they should join hands to evolve an agenda because the country is facing a very serious crisis. The war on terror cannot be fought without the united will of all the people, including, I would say, the religious scholars who couldn't stand up to the pressure of the terrorists. But what is happening, not even today, yesterday, not even the Deobandi masjids are being spared now. Not even the most sacred places of our spirituality, like Dada Darbar, like Dada Ganj, like Baba Farid Shakagan's tomb, even they are not safe. Even our GHQ is not safe. I say headquarters is not safe. So they need our security from the forces which were unleashed in the Afghan war and perpetuated and patronized afterwards, and we had developed that as a great art of our strategy. We do not accept any kind of terrorist, on any pretext that he or that group or militia is our strategic asset. We refuse to accept it. The government of Pakistan, the state of Pakistan, and institutions will again face a great embarrassment when they say our lovely Taliban, our pyare Taliban have turned their guns against us. So the state must enforce its writ across the land. Not an inch of Pakistan must remain in the hands of any violent terrorist group. State must have the monopoly. I am saying this, the monopoly of coercion. And that is the army, that is the police, that is the intelligence, that is the armed wings of the state. And I am afraid when I give this call, because the same coercive power can be used against the citizens. Was used against me. I was attacked by them. I hope that they will, I'm now old, please don't attack me again. But I will continue to talk what I want to talk. So what I'm saying is that this is also the issue of sovereignty. That the state of Pakistan must have monopoly over its state, of every inch of it. And we must not allow the terrorists in Waziristan or on the Kashmir front to operate with state patronage. That must come to an end. We cannot afford this inconsistent chori-chakari ki policy. This is chori-chakari ki policy. We do not accept it. Then we want to clearly say that Pakistan cannot afford to get into arms race with India. India with its 8 and 9% GDP growth rate, and Pakistan's coming down to close to 2% or less than 3%. We cannot afford. We are already out of this arms race. We have a nuclear deterrence. We should have smart, effective, cost-effective defense system. But we cannot have the luxury of an unending military complex being built at the expense of the people, at the expense of human security. So we want to widen the scope of the security, which we think should be the human security, should be the greatest priority or the first priority of the state. We want that we must have friendly relationship across the neighborhood, with Afghanistan, with India, with Central Asia, with Iran, with Turkey, with China. And Pakistan must revive its traditional roots. Peshawar will become great hub, Kashmir will become great hub, Lahore will become great hub, Karachi will become great hub. And that only economists tell us, I have a report with me, that only that can push Pakistan's GDP growth rate by at least 3 to 5% up. That means that we can touch the 8% mark by opening the traditional trade routes which we have been enjoying pre-47. That doesn't compromise our stand on Kashmir. That doesn't stop us from debating with India all our differences and demanding from India and asking India to resolve those issues, including Siachen, including Sar Creek, including Kashmir. We should continue to take a principled position on that, and we should adopt peaceful means to resolve all disputes with India. We have done wars. We have done this cross-border business a lot. We have failed to get Kashmir liberated or Kashmir banega Pakistan. That has not happened. That will never happen. And if we continue to do this, we may destabilize ourselves. I am warning it that we will be destabilizing ourselves. Now there is intifada going on in Kashmir. We welcome it. We support the aspirations of the democratic people, the democratic aspirations. India must address to those aspirations. And please do not send the Mehman Jihadis there, they call, to disrupt the intifada, as we did after 1989. Let Kashmiris fight their own struggle. You cannot liberate them. Don't become their liberators. So let Kashmiris liberate themselves. Let them have their own aspirations. Yes, we can morally support them. But we should also have good moral standards to stand upon. If we are undermining the rights of minorities in our own country, if we are not giving the Baluchistan its due, and if we are not addressing the plight of the people in Fatah, who have been sandwiched by the terrorists and by the military operation as well. If they are not given their rights, how can we speak for the rights of Palestinians or for the rights of Kashmiris or for anybody else in the world? So these are other issues. Then the economy, I think we are locked in a syndrome called a low growth, high poverty equilibrium. So we have related the points in this. You will find it and we will be discussing tomorrow. There are other points like on economy we have elaborate points. On the state, that we want the enforcement of the writ of the state, and we want that no terrorist outfit be allowed in Pakistan soil, including North Waziristan. Now interestingly, if America says it becomes a question of our pride, why should we do it? Whether America says or not, let us exclude America out of it. Let us exclude NATO out of it. Why should we let North Waziristan become a hub of terrorists? Whether America wants it or whether America doesn't want it. In our own interest, we have seen South Waziristan attacking the whole of Pakistan. Suicide bombing we have seen. So do we want to keep these nurseries of suicide bombers? To kill our people, to kill our children, to destroy our schools? We should not. We also want, sir, Mr. Kaira, the revision of our security and foreign policies. Kindly convene a conference. Kindly respond to what Nawaz Sharif is saying. Please do not mind it. Nawaz Sharif is not asking for share of power. He is not going for midterm elections. No, I think no political parties in Pakistan are ready or keen to have. Mr. Kaira will never have. Mr. Nawaz, the sitting MLAs, nobody will have to have midterm elections. I know this. I know this, that they will not leave the coalition in Punjab. Even the PMLN says, okay, please leave, they will not leave. Because they want the Mausam to be fine, Mahal to be fine. But what I'm saying is that politicians and the civil society and the media should sit together to evolve a national agenda. Not because me and Nawaz Sharif, we had, in our Citizen for Democracy appeal, we had identified 6 areas. terrorism, foreign policy and security and policy towards neighbors, economy, that includes all aspects of economy, then governance, and now there is the issue of governance. In the next session, we'll be discussing it in detail. Governance means that Prime Minister should not wear more than 5 suits. Or there should be 3 khanas or 3 dishes or 4 dishes. That is great governance. These are all bogus narebazi. Governance is from the police station and Patwari to the president, from Chief Justice to the civil court magistrate, from a civil administration at the local level to the highest level and establishment division, in the procedures, in the regulations, how do you regulate, how you bring checks and balances, how do you advertise your plans, how do you advertise your contracts, are you allowing free competition and equal opportunity to all, and the devolution. And I'm sorry that our Democrats, be in the center or in the provinces, do not want local government elections. Or they are not holding, if they want, they are not holding them soon. Local government must be revived, and just not district government, that the mayors become the great plunderers. No. It should go to the grassroots level at the local union council level. We must go for devolution that will reduce the level of corruption. And the government should be open. All records should be on there. And benefiting from the presence of the minister, I would request the minister that please, the draft we propose to the Information Ministry, which is lost somewhere, and you are trying to find out this Gumshuda Bacha. We are giving advertisement in the newspapers that this is a draft. We have found it and published in this document as well. Minister Saab, your ministry had approved this. Kindly tell us today that when you are taking the information law to the parliament. Will you join me in supporting me or not? Then the Pembra law must be revised. That is the most blackest law. No media owner is speaking about that. They have signed a worst code of ethics और जंप लगाते हैं, नारे लगाते हैं, हम बड़े फन्ने खान हैं. किसी ने एक आवाज़ अब तक नहीं उठाई है कि ये पेमरा लॉ बहुत खराब है. हम यहाँ quid pro, we are ready for a quid pro quo. We are ready for a press council, very strong, with the civilian teeth, but without the intervention of the executive, that yes, let there be a bipartisan process in the parliament to nominate the members of the council, and let them not be regulated by the government rules of government employees as it is in the current law. Let there be a press council which should be nominated through a bipartisan process in the parliament, and we will follow the code of conduct evolved by international media bodies and our own professional bodies. The citizens should take us to their press council that my dignity is being damaged by a report or by a comment, or there is unfair comment, or that is a false news, or that is falsification. So we are ready for this, that you bring in information law and a new Pembra law. We have proposed you both, and we are for a press council. Thank you much.